our minds with AI are going to combine together to create something so much bigger than ourselves, right? We're already seeing AI starting to do that with GPT, where it enables people to work at productivity levels that weren't previously possible. We're starting to see how humans with AI are actually better than just humans, right? And now we're going to add this extra layer, which is the brain-computer interface, the mind, into the whole equation. And that's going to really bring us to the next, what I call human frontier. And we're going to just see more and more of that merging together. First, as simple as a pair of headphones that help you track your focus and prevent burnout, but then longer term, how do machines and computers combine together to create the best outcome and leverage the strengths of both forms?
Hi, I'm Boaz, founder and CEO of Augmented AI Labs, and I'm excited that you're tuning in to the Shift AI podcast, a show that explores what it takes to thrive and adapt to the changing workplace in the digital age of remote work and AI. In today's episode, I'm thrilled to have Ramses Alcaide as our guest. Ramses is the CEO of Neurable, a company that's revolutionizing how we interact with technology using our brains. Neurable is developing cutting-edge neurotechnology that can read brain activity, improve focus, and even control devices with thoughts. If you're someone interested in the future of human-computer interaction, neurotechnology, and the convergence of mind and AI, you are not going to want to miss this episode. We also want to send out a special thank you to Augmented AI Labs for sponsoring this episode. This is going to be a great show, and we are super excited to talk to Ramses today. We can't wait to learn more from him. Let's get to it. All right, Ramses, it's so awesome to have you on the Shift AI podcast today. I am really excited about this topic, and I'm excited about talking to you.
Likewise. Since we last spoke, there's been so much change that I'm just really excited to share it all with you and your listeners.
All right. Okay. Well, before we do that, I just want to kind of briefly talk about your background so the audience knows who you are. Grew up in Seattle and went to the University of Washington, then went to the University of Michigan, went through schooling there, got your PhD, and then spun out a company from the University of Michigan called Neurable, which you're the CEO of now. We're going to go deep into that. But I know that's a long period of time, but you guys are deep in this new technology and excited to talk about it. Did I get everything right in terms of the timeline?
Yeah, no, definitely. That was it.
Yeah. So tell me, I always like to ask this question just to kind of give people kind of understanding of what your background was like. Growing up in Seattle, were your parents scientists? Were they in the business community? What did they do for a living? And then what was your first job where you actually got money, where you actually got a paycheck?
Yeah, I mean, my parents, they were actually, so I was born in Mexico, but I moved to Seattle when I was about 5. My parents were teachers in Mexico, so education was always a really important part of my background. But when they came to the United States, they essentially lost a lot of their credentials. So they essentially just worked at whatever they could. My dad was primarily cleaning schools or restaurants, and my mom typically took care of me and my sister, but there was always this emphasis toward, how do you, 1, follow an education, but then 2, how do you make things just work, right? Especially in that kind of financial situation. And that's what came to my first job. I remember my parents bought me this computer from an uncle of mine that was at least, it was definitely old. And I remember I took it apart and I just wanted to know how it worked. And what I ended up doing is once I understood how the pieces came together, I was like, I'm going to put flyers around my neighborhood and go fix people's computers, right?
Yeah.
And so that was when I was about, 12 years old. And what was funny is I would show up at people's doors and they'd be like, oh, that's cute. You brought your son along, because my dad would come with me because I'm 12 years old. And my dad's like, I have no idea what fixing computers is. My son is here to fix your computer. I'm just here to make sure he's okay. And so I charged like $20 an hour. And at 12 years old, that's really good.
Yeah, that's real money.
And so I made some really good cash. And that's when that's when everybody in my family knew entrepreneurship was something that might be part of my future. But I honestly didn't know I was going to be an entrepreneur until grad school.
Interesting. So when you studied at the University of Washington, were you a computer science major?
I studied electrical engineering. So I was on the Steve Allen side of the building that has no art. I don't know why they treat us so poorly on that side, but I studied double E.
Well, I think the audience is going to be blown away by what you're doing now. When you were at University of Michigan, how did your PhD research lead into this spin out? And then will you talk a little bit about what the company is, what Neurable is, and what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Really, at least my passion for Neurable started when I was about 8. I wanted to build technology to help individuals who were differently abled interact with the world, specifically with their brain. So I went to the University of Washington, studied electrical engineering, primarily for prosthetic control and like AI. But then when I went to the University of Michigan, the vision got a lot bigger. I started seeing all these gaps that happen in neuroscience, specifically in areas like understanding the brain. There's people who have Alzheimer's and Parkinson's that don't even know it until 10 years in. Like, that just blows my mind. Like, how is that like a normal thing? So I ended up spinning out the company. I met my co-founder, Adam Molnar, at the University of Michigan as well, too. We worked through a lot of the entrepreneurial network. University of Michigan has an awesome entrepreneurial, teaching system. And then that's when we decided to spin out the company. And really what Neurable focuses on is how do we increase the signal of brain data? So much so that you don't have to use large caps. We can instead use systems like headphones and earbuds and still get really strong signals. So I'm actually wearing a pair of the MW75 Neuros, which is our first licensing opportunity with a company called Master Dynamic. So they're just gorgeous headphones with really nice noise cancellation and audio. But on top of that, they have these neural sensors, which are these silver bands on the inside right here. And those record my brain activity, and I can do things like track my focus and attention, also do some very simple commands to the headphones. And so really what we're doing is we're bringing forward the future of smart headphones that leverage brain data, just like the touchscreen was for smartphones. We're using neural sensors to bring in this next level of interaction for smart headphones.
Yeah. Well, I was watching the video, your marketing video for the company that was talking about a bunch of different use cases. I'm going to link that in the show notes so people can watch it, because it is amazing to think about. I want to go deeper on the use cases. I mean, some of them are just everyday use cases that all of us will be able to use. Some of them are folks that have brain impairments, and some of them are, for others. Will you talk about all the potential use cases? And then also, I think a lot of people are trying to understand, how does this work? How does the brain actually communicate with this hardware? And I know that researchers have been thinking about this for a long time, but for the most of us, we don't really understand what's going on under the hood. So can you talk through use cases and then just how this all works?
Yeah, so I really like to think of neurotechnology as kind of like the next software, right? We use software for things as simple as a calculator all the way to launching rockets to space. We're going to be seeing neurotechnology essentially be used in that level of broadness, right? From things as simple as tracking focus and attention, which is what the product does right now when you buy it. But then over time, it's going to open up more capabilities. For example, very simple control devices. In the future, it might even control your augmented reality devices. Imagine when we all have AR glasses, you're going to click with your mind instead of, having to carry controllers with you. And then even tracking neurodegenerative diseases or diagnosing things like neurodiverse conditions of individuals, right? It's an incredibly broad application. And how it works is essentially your brain has neurons, and these neurons fire. And when they create really large firings of neurons, you can actually pick that up from outside the head. So it requires no surgery. It's called electroencephalography, or EEG. And so these sensors right here are actually EEG sensors on a pair of headphones. Now, normally these wouldn't work that well, but because of the AI, and you can actually see it here, it says powered by Neurable AI. Because of the AI, we're able to boost the signal and make it so that they work at a similar level as, much higher density systems.
Yeah. That's super interesting. So let's walk through a kind of a use case in everyday life, maybe not now with the headsets you're wearing, but as you imagine a future for what I'm going to be able to do. And essentially anything that I can do on a mouse clicking, or even text into a chat area on a window inside my computer, will be possible with me just thinking it.
It's going to be a little bit more complicated than that because voice to text is very much something that is better done by invasive, so surgical systems. But there's ways that we're going to be showing off this pretty soon, but there are ways to essentially leverage the brain to create responses to simple text messages or to switch music tracks, play, pause, next track. But the very first use case, there's an app and everything available too. It tracks your focus as you work, tells you when to take breaks to prevent burnout. And that's actually one of the biggest problems that exists right now. People, they take breaks when they feel tired, but when you feel tired, that's your body being tired. Your brain was tired way earlier, right? And so if you actually take breaks at moments when your brain needs it, you're able to maintain a high level of focus and prevent burnout throughout the day. And actually, we did a study with the Mayo Clinic where we showed that by taking brain-based breaks, you can increase your end-of-day happiness by about 50% and decrease your end-of-day stress by 20%. And the reason for that is actually a really straightforward reason, which is when people took breaks throughout the day, they were able to maintain a high level of focus and productivity, which meant that, they had less errors in their work. They didn't have to take work home because they were able to be productive while they were working at their job. And then not having to take that work home or not feeling like they accomplished as much as they wanted to meant that they went home guilt-free. They were energized. They were happy. They felt like they crushed their work. They were able to spend time with family. And it created a lot more balance across their entire, lifestyle.
Before we go further with the interview, I want to tell you about one of our podcast sponsors, Augmented AI Labs, and how they're transforming businesses through intelligent AI solutions. Augmented AI Labs specializes in helping organizations unlock their potential with Gen AI, starting with your most valuable asset, your business knowledge. Their comprehensive process begins by identifying critical workflow challenges and knowledge needs, then building custom solutions that make your company's expertise instantly accessible. The Augmented AI Labs team combines fine-tuning and retrieval methods to ensure your AI solutions truly understand your business context. They thoroughly test and validate each solution, ensuring it delivers measurable value before creating a detailed technical blueprint for deployment. The real beauty of partnering with Augmented AI Labs is that they don't just stop at strategy. They build, deploy, and manage these solutions for you, continuously improving your knowledge systems while you focus on what you do best. If you're ready to transform how your organization leverages AI and knowledge, visit augmentedAIlabs.com and click on the Contact Us button. That's augmentedAIlabs.com. Now back to the episode. So you had mentioned at the beginning of the show that there's been some changes that have happened since the last time we've spoke. Can you talk about that? And is that related to the power of large language models and small language models that you're using, or like what are the new updates that are different?
Yeah, there's a few things all the way from like the product is launching in the next couple of months, which is already like pretty huge news. We still have to announce the specific date, but this is actually the near final build that I have with me right now, which is awesome. So that's going to be announced very soon. On top of that, the app is finally completed, and I'm happy to share some screens that you can throw up, but it's cool to see people's focus in real time when they should take breaks. And then on top of that, we're going to be throwing essentially like a hackathon where people are going to be using the headphones in a lot of creative ways, including ways that integrate GPT, right? So like imagine you get a text message, GPT can create a few different responses and then you can select them without having to pull out your phone, right? And so it's not direct word to text, but it solves 90% of your texting issues. So you can just keep your phone in your pocket and be a part of the world more directly.
And so are there other hardware solutions that you have in mind after this release? You're thinking about earbuds and other kind of wearables. Can you talk a little bit about what the product roadmap looks like?
Yeah. Thankfully, since most of our technology is software, we can license it across numerous companies and different devices as well too. We're looking at other device form factors to let everybody know, don't wait for them. They're going to take a while. We don't actually build product, but we license our product to companies like Master and Dynamic. And so as we license these future products, you're going to start to see more and more. And very soon, like most of the devices that are going to become smart headphones or earbuds or AR glasses, etc. It's just going to take a little bit. Like, I wouldn't wait for them.
Yeah. But I mean, it seems obvious to me that, with some of the things we've been seeing with glasses where speakers are getting placed in the stems of the glasses and, the different things that are happening, even though the technology is super small right now, it seems like it's going to show up in those typical form factors.
For sure. And imagine just like taking a picture using, brain data, right? Or, hearing the text message and replying to it. Like, and the best part about that is all of those use cases we're actually, testing out with our current device, right? So this already gives you audio and it gives you neural data. And so we can test out a lot of these really cool pieces. And actually you can be a part of that testing and help us build these systems out. So when those AR devices do come out, it's more seamless and it works better across more people.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And it seems like the testing that you're doing, I mean, what you're describing is a lot of actions being taken, like, play this song, forward this song, start the camera, stop the camera, pause. Are you finding that the high percentage of your tests are working for those scenarios?
Yeah, I mean, right now they work well on a few individuals here in the office. And then as we bring this technology out, we're going to get, with user consent, more data if people want to participate. And then that's going to help us refine the system so that we can roll them out and make them a part of everybody's experience, right? Anybody who has a Neurable powered device, whether it's headphones or anything else, will get access to that type of technology.
Yeah. So what kind of signal are you getting out there in the market when you describe and tell this story? I imagine it's varied, but you guys have been in a lot of press and I'm sure you're on the road talking to a lot of people. What are the challenges too, when you start to talk about what you guys are doing, like both sides? And I'm sure people are excited, but what are the challenges for you from a storytelling standpoint?
Yeah, at least the reception that we've gotten so far has been pretty much overwhelmingly positive. We're selling the headphones like crazy. Like they're flying off. We got incredible good return on ads and they're not even out yet. Right. And so when they do, like the world has been waiting for disruption to happen in the headphone space. And this type of technology is really significant and it hits a really valuable pain point, especially tied to the future of work, which is focus, burnout prevention, employee retention. On top of that, like nobody likes to go to work and leave burnt out, right? Like come home and feel, man, I hate my job. Why am I doing this? I feel like I should have gotten more done. Like that feeling of guilt, like people don't like that, right? And so how do we use the brain in a way that helps you accomplish your goals, achieve your dreams, and then at the same time too, make you feel energized, be able to go home, spend time with people that you care and you love, right? It's a really big pain point that we're solving. And so press and people buying it are really excited. Challenges, obviously there's a ton of them, right? The main one is that people are afraid that it is brain data that we're collecting, right? And so we have to be really cautious about making sure that we communicate that we de-identify all data. So we don't, we keep it anonymous. We follow HIPAA standards. We're working toward GDPR. We really want to respect that relationship. Everything is opt-in, right? And then on top of that, your phones infinitely steal way more data than we can. Like this isn't reading your brain. This isn't brain reading. We're picking up electrical signals from your brain. And we're doing some interpretation. So it's very high level information. And in educating people about that is really important so that they don't, go into this dystopian mentality of where the technology is going. It's actually incredibly safe. Like I said, your phone is already infinitely more invasive and we're already accustomed to that. This is more like an accelerometer for your brain than like any type of anything scary.
And now, before we dive deeper, I want to take a quick moment and tell you a little bit about one of our podcast partners. As a listener of this show, I know you're trying to stay on top of all things AI and tech, which is why you have to check out the amazing GeekWire podcast, produced by GeekWire and hosted by Todd Bishop. It's a treasure of insights featuring industry leaders and the latest tech trends that are shaping our world. It's the perfect companion podcast to Shift AI. GeekWire Podcast is where technology meets curiosity and covers the world of technology, startups, and geek culture. Expand your tech horizons and join the conversation. Tune into the GeekWire Podcast today, a perfect complement to our own discussions here. Don't miss out. Follow the GeekWire Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite listening app. Now back to the episode. I saw in one of the examples that you had given a patient that was having some brain issues. And one of the ways that you were able to measure certain parts of that activity and help and convey that information to a medical professional and so on. Can you talk about situations like that and how that could be positive outcomes for folks that have those kinds of issues?
For sure. Yeah, as we've been collecting data for the last 10 years and improving the systems, we've identified a lot of key biomarkers related to the brain in different conditions. I think the one that you're talking about is a friend of ours who has Parkinson's. And essentially, he has a deep brain stimulation. And he came by, and he's a really great friend of ours. And he's like, hey, how about I just put on the headphones and see what happens if I turn my deep brain stimulation on and off. And the substantia nigra, where the majority of the issues come from when it comes to Parkinson's, is pretty deep in. So I was like, we're not going to see anything, but all right, man, whatever, you're here, right? And so he puts on the headphones and then turns off and on the deep brain stimulation. And what you see is that depending on the level of his tremor, which you could detect from his hand, we could see something called a beta oscillation, which is a type of brain associated to essentially, one, it has to do with your brain being active, but then two, it's also tied to Parkinson's, right? And so we could actually see the same type of response happening with this beta wave that we were recording from the brain. And when we saw that, he reached out to his medical professional and basically told him this information. And they said, hey, we should really talk about doing a grant together, because right now we can only tune these deep brain stimulations whenever they come into our office, right? But what if we're recording brain data continuously? One, we'll have a whole bunch of data to know how to tune them. But then two, eventually, what if your deep brain stimulation could just be tuned dynamically from your headset? So you didn't have to go into the office, which is an incredibly time-consuming process. This is very long-term things. We're not getting into the medical field anytime soon. We're not diagnosing anybody or anything like that. But it shows the potential of what everyday brain-computer interfaces can bring that have been untapped, right? This technology has been around since the 80s, but we haven't been able to tap into the value propositions as much as we could have, because they haven't been available in everyday life reliably.
Yeah. I mean, let's keep going on this and wave our magic wand a little bit, look into the future. And I realize that this may be a future that's far, far away, but let's take this into the future and say, what is possible, and what are the things that your team has been dreaming about in terms of where this could go?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to me, like I said, it comes back to neurotech being like software. We're going to see it in your helmets, your earbuds, your AR glasses, anything that touches your head, even a patch behind your ear, right? And all of these things aren't really that hypothetical. We're talking to a group that does a patch behind the ear for truck drivers to prevent them from falling asleep at the wheel, right? Helmets is something that we're working on with the Department of Defense in order to prevent traumatic brain injuries. But essentially, all these neurodegenerative diseases, all these neurodiverse conditions, we can essentially track, understand, provide feedback first to clinicians, but then eventually help with diagnosis and new types of solutions. And then on top of that, imagine a seamless future where, you're able to go anywhere, use your AR glasses to interact with things, authenticate things using your brain, click on things, interact with the world. It's essentially going to be that new layer that really creates a seamless world. And that's what neurotechnology has that nothing else has, essentially, to unlock for the world.
Yeah, it really is just a completely new interface. So let me jump to a question that I ask a lot on the show. The show is in a lot of ways about the future of work, and a lot of folks have felt in the last, post-pandemic, the lack of mentorship in their lives because they're not meeting together. It's starting to change a little bit, but a lot of young people tell me that they wish they had more people, more mentors in their lives impacting them. has been that person for you? Was there somebody at the University of Michigan, University of Washington that really changed the way that you thought about your trajectory?
Oh man, there's too many, right? Like there's way too many. I guess if I could come back to at least one person that I think was really influential, his name is Richard Sheridan. He's from a company called Menlo Innovation. He's famous worldwide. He's written 2 books, Chief Joy Officer and Joy Inc. But he's known for having the most joyful company in the world, right? And people travel from across the world to come meet him. And I remember during my first 2 weeks of building the company, it was just so hard. Communication wasn't going well. Like I didn't sign up to be a CEO, right? I signed up to, build technology. I was doing my PhD. So there's so many new learnings and lessons I had to do. And I remember Richard, first of all, busy guy, spends an hour and still is willing to spend time with me and the team whenever I asked, but he spent an hour talking to us about his culture, how he built it, and then he recommended 2 books that changed my life, and that was 5 Dysfunctions of a Team and Leadership and Self-Deception. And he continued to bring those ideals back to me, but it's basically like good teams have conflict was the core message, which is like you debate things, you disagree on things, at the end you have to disagree and commit. But you can't have a good team if you're not able to communicate openly with one another, so that people can bring up problems. Because people bring up problems, people fix those problems, right? And that was, I think, the biggest, piece of advice that impacted me.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great lesson for all the listeners that are running companies and leading teams, for sure. Well, I always like to finish with the same question for everybody. And that is, in 2 words, if you were to only choose 2 words to describe the future of work, the future of AI, where you see all of this is going, what would those 2 words be? And then you can elaborate.
Okay. It would be mind and AI.
Okay.
Yeah. And the reason for that is because our minds with AI are going to combine together to create something so much bigger than ourselves, right? We're already seeing AI starting to do that with GPT, where, it enables people to work at productivity levels that weren't previously possible. We're starting to see how humans with AI are actually better than just humans, right? And now we're going to add this extra layer, which is, the brain-computer interface, the mind, into the whole equation. And that's going to really bring us to the next, what I call human frontier. And we're going to just see more and more of that merging together. First, as simple as a pair of headphones that help you track your focus and prevent burnout, but then longer term, how do machines and computers combine together to create the best outcome and leverage the strengths of both forms?
Yeah. I love that. Mind AI. So for those of folks out there that want to get in touch with you, are you guys hiring right now? Are you growing your team? How do they get in touch with you? And what does that look like?
Yeah, we're growing our team continuously. And if you want to reach out to me, just join our Discord. I'm literally there. The team is there. We talk to people. We're very engaged.
Awesome. Well, I really, really appreciate you coming on the show. This has been fascinating, and things are changing so fast that we're going to have you back on. Well, when is the release of the headphone? It's
going to be in a few months. I can't say the exact date, but once we do, happy to schedule an update call and share with you all the cool things that the tech can do.
I love it. Ramses, thank you so much for being on the Shift AI podcast. I really appreciate it and look forward to checking out the hardware when it comes out.
Thank you. Take care.
That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Such a pleasure to have Ramses Alcaide as our guest on today's episode. Ramses brings a unique perspective on the future of neurotechnology, showing us how the combination of mind and AI can transform our work, health, and daily interactions. His vision of seamlessly integrating brain data into every device opens up exciting possibilities for enhancing human capabilities and solving complex problems. If you want to stay connected to Ramses, you can find him on LinkedIn and X. If you are interested in his insights on neurotechnology, definitely connect with him and keep up with his posts and activities online. I continue to be amazed by the guests we've had on the show, and I'm excited about the ones joining us in the near future. I truly appreciate you spending your time with us. Thank you for listening to this episode, and don't forget to subscribe to the Shift AI podcast for more exciting interviews, and to the Augmented AI Weekly newsletter for updates on how AI can help you scale your business. The Shift AI podcast is syndicated by GeekWire, and we are grateful to have the show sponsored by Augmented AI Labs. Our theme music was created by Dave Angel.